Good morning, everybody. I'm gonna give it just a minute to let everybody in. Everybody has connected. Awesome. Good morning, everybody. My name is Alex Newsom. I am a career counselor here at the Center for Career and Professional Development. And today we're going to be talking about resume writing for education majors. One thing that I always encourage students to do, if you have a resume and you want to pull it up while I'm talking and giving this presentation so that you can kind of review your own as we go through, that's a great idea. If you don't have a resume created, use this as kind of a guide as you start the creation of your resume. At the end, I'm going to share this presentation, so please don't worry. And then I'm also recording so that I can put it on our YouTube channel for other education majors to use later on if they couldn't join us today. And if you guys have any questions as I go through the presentation, there's a small group of us today, so please feel free to unmute and ask the question or drop it into that chat box as well. Either one works. All right, with all of that in mind, I want to start this presentation by going briefly over our core competencies. So if you're not familiar with them, there are 9 transferable skills or traits that we've heard from employers and professional schools in what they look for in a candidate. So there are things you probably already have skills in, but you want to make sure that you're developing these throughout your time at Clemson and even after. This presentation will really cover communication, self-awareness, and brand because they all have to do with your resume. So your resume is a written communication of who you are, what experiences you have. It is a little bit to know about who you are, what you have, what you've done, those kind of things. And then it's your brand on paper. So when you're in an application process, your application, your resume, and the interview person that they see should all be consistent. And that first step is having a resume that describes your experiences and how they are related to the position that you're applying for. So showing that personal brand right off the bat at the beginning, all the way through that interview process. So what is a resume exactly? I like to describe it as a marketing tool that highlights your education, work experiences, skills that are all tailored to the position that you're applying for. Hopefully, it is to obtain a full-time, part-time internship, graduate school admission, whatever the case may be. It's, like I said a second ago, that first professional branded part so that people can see and be excited about who you are and what experience you have related to the position. Hopefully, the resume and the application itself leads to the next step, which is going to be an interview, and then hopefully that full-time position after graduation. So how do I start one? If you are the person who has a lot of experiences, but not entirely sure how to organize them on a resume, you want to start by brainstorming everything you've done. Now, one thing to keep in mind as we go through, there is no one perfect way to create your resume. You're going to get sick of me saying this, but I want it to be you on a piece of paper, your experiences, skill, anything that's relevant to what you're applying for. I would suggest, though, that your resume in undergrad or as an undergraduate student be 1 page. Now, I also recommend keeping an everything resume or an all but the kitchen sink, I call it sometimes, copy of all of your experiences. So that way, when you start to apply to different positions or in different areas, you may want to think about, what experiences do I have from that everything resume that feels most related to what I'm applying for now. So then you take whatever you feel like is most helpful to the position you're applying to know about you. You pull those things from your everything resume and put it on a 1-page document. Now, that's not to say that if you're interviewing that you couldn't bring a longer resume, or if you want to follow up, you feel like you don't have absolutely everything you want them to know about you on that 1 page, you could always follow up later with a longer version if needed. We're going to do some formatting guidelines, and then we're going to talk primarily about the content of what could be on your resume. So just some general overall formatting things. You want it to be easy for them to read and navigate. So margins can be as small as 0.5 to 1 inch all the way around the page. Employers have told us in the past, typically they look and are used to looking to the left side of your page for more what you did, and for the right, or to the right, for the when and where you did it. So by that, I mean, you want to make sure you have the company title and your position title on the left, and you want to have the dates and locations of those positions on the right, and then bullets underneath. Font can be anywhere between 10 to 12 point, except for your name. That wants to be the biggest thing on the page. 14 to 16 point font, bolded, something that helps it stand out. And you want your font to be consistent throughout. You'll hear me say this a lot throughout this presentation, but you want to have everything as consistent and organized as possible so that when employers are reviewing your resume, they can look through, catch all of the relevant and important information, and not have to search for it. So what are you putting on your resume? You are putting whatever you feel like is most meaningful to you, the experiences that you have that are relevant to the position, and then maybe some other things like volunteer experience or clubs or organizations, things that showcase your personality as well. So you'll start with a header, and we're going to walk through all these topics, but make sure you have a header, make sure you have an education section, make sure you have experience, work experience, volunteer, research, leadership, whatever the case may be. And then think about what else you may want to share with that potential employer about who you are. So we're going to start at the top and work our way down. So one thing to think about as we go through, you want the most important information to be closer to the top, and then the least important information down at the bottom. You also want to organize all that information by date as well. So you're thinking about most current to the least current experiences. In college, I generally encourage students, if you are in your sophomore year, end of your sophomore year, to be taking out anything and everything related to high school. Your potential employer moving forward will most likely want to see your most recent activity and what you've been doing in college to support the thing you want to do next. The one time, especially for education majors, I would encourage everything off high school, unless you are returning to the high school or really want to work at the high school that you may have come from or something like that. You could leave your high school for education information on there to showcase that you're an alum or something like that. So we're going to start with the header. So what do we put in that first thing that they're going to see on the page? One, like I mentioned before, you want to have your name be the biggest and boldest part of your document in case it ever gets lost on a principal or whoever's going to be reviewing your application. You want it to be on their desk and they can find it really easily. You are welcome to put your address in the header. However, more and more common these days to leave it off, or if you would like to add in the city and state that you're from, that is really acceptable. Another big thing you want in your header is your email address. It doesn't have to be your Clemson address as long as it's something that you check frequently. And then you want to make sure you have a working phone number on there. Make sure, especially if you're in the application phases, that your email is correct, that your phone number is correct, because you want to make sure that they can get in contact with you, one of those ways to offer you an interview, hopefully. The other portion I want you to note is this objective statement. So an objective statement is completely optional. Some employers love it. Sometimes the student working with it will love their objective statement. Others don't feel like it's necessary or need the additional space on their resume. So something to keep in mind as you go through. An objective statement overall is just to tell them what you're applying to, what position you're applying for, and then what kind of skills you have that you want to bring to the table for that specific position. Now, moving to education, you want to make sure that you're highlighting your degree, spelling out Bachelor of instead of BS or BA, solely because if schools are using applicant tracking systems to kind of filter through their resumes before, they tend to be trained to look for that Bachelor of instead of BS or BA. You want to make sure you're listing that major in line with your date of graduation. Make sure you're listing Clemson University is in Clemson, South Carolina. And then if you have a minor emphasis area, concentration, anything like that that you want to showcase, if you studied abroad, if any of those things pop up for you, you can add them into your education section as well. You also want to go ahead and list your GPA if it's a 3.0 or higher, and give yourself some credit and mark it out of that 4.0 scale or 4.00 scale, just to showcase that great GPA in comparison to maybe a 3.6 isn't as impressive if it's out of a 5-point scale or an 8-point scale, which some other schools may have. So the next and most important section of your resume is going to be your experience section. Experience can come from anything: work, internships, volunteer, leadership roles, research opportunities. It's again, what you think would showcase your work ethic, your experience, all of those things. That's where you want to draw from. And then you want to make sure in your experience that you're listing the position title, the organization, the school, whatever the case may be, the dates that you worked there, and the locations. And that may look a little bit different just based on what you're trying to do. For teaching, though, I would highly recommend having a teaching experience section where you showcase where you were a student teacher, whenever you worked with the age population you may want to work with, tutoring experiences, anything that is teaching related. Show that right up front so that you can showcase that you do have experience in this field. One way that you can make sure you're doing that too is through really confident bullet statements. I would encourage 3 to 5 bullets per experience, even 6 if you feel like you need it. But showcase what you did in that. Describe the skills, the responsibilities, the experiences that you've had, and make sure that each of those bullet points start with an action verb. You're utilizing something like quantifiers, so numbers, dollar amount, percentages, things like that to show the scope of what you are working with. Look at the position description, see if you have done whatever they've listed that they want you to have experience in, and then try to group it and showcase where you learned that through those different experience sections. Does not matter how you organize it, as long as you are consistent throughout. You'll see here, we, just for example's sake, put the organization, Clemson High School, the role, and then aligned it with the location and the dates, and then showcased with a couple bullets. Something to be sure and pay attention to as well is make sure that you're changing up those action verbs that you're starting each bullet with. You don't want them to just see developed, research. Mix it up a little bit, show them the variety of the work that you've done in each of those experiences. Then you can move on to special sections. So again, normally directed and targeted and tailored towards the objective of your resume. So you're tailoring these sections to the skills and experiences that that specific school or position requires. So some popular pieces for this may be qualifications, technical skills. So if you're CPR certified, if you're first aid certified, if you are, X, Y, and Z in terms of those different certifications, they may be helpful to list. And then you can also showcase some maybe honors and extracurricular activities that you may not want to bullet out and describe everything that you've done with those, but you still want to make sure that you're showcasing those different aspects of your time at school. So think about what are the other positions or roles that you feel like you had that would be meaningful for them to know about, but not necessarily need to bullet out as much. You can also list any sort of honors, awards, scholarships, leadership positions, clubs, certifications, anything like that, just depending on how much space you have left on your resume. So some things to remember as you start looking at that resume to actually use in an application is, like I've said a million times today, make sure that it's tailored and targeted to the specific position. It should reflect your skills and abilities related to that position. If you're an undergrad, it should be 1 page. If you have a master's or a PhD, it can be 2 pages. Or if you want to follow up with a little bit of a longer resume later on, maybe in the actual interview, you could do that too. And then something that I always just kind of a thought to think about is, if you're uncomfortable sharing personal information like your religious or political preferences, you want to make sure that you're taking off some of those things from your resume. So if you were the president of the Young Republicans Club, or you were really involved in your church, and that is something that you may, if you do not want to share with a potential employer, make sure you're checking those things on your resume. If you're comfortable sharing those things, it is absolutely fine and shows great involvement in your time at school as well. So think about that. Some rules of thumb, is forget the fancy stuff means you want to make sure that resume is as easy to read as possible. So if you do not need, or you do not need a picture of yourself on your resume, you don't necessarily need a ton of graphics and things like that either, if it's not something, or if it's something that will detract rather than add to your resume. Use buzzwords or keywords based on the position description. Look at the schools that you're applying to. See if there's anything in their mission, vision, values, those kind of things that may be helpful to showcase. You can add those to your resume when appropriate. Keep it simple when you can. Again, consistent, clean, and easy to read. Use those strong action verbs and quantifiers. And then, like I mentioned, try to avoid some of that high school material once you get past your sophomore year. So once you have that really great working resume, you want to ask yourself a couple of these questions. Is it consistent? Is it clear of spelling, grammar, errors, things like that? Do I have everything that I want to showcase about me on that? And then have someone else look at it, whether that's a friend, a professor, one of us at the Career Center. Have somebody look at it because you may have missed something. I can't tell you, when I applied to this position years ago, I misspelled the word "the" in my resume because I looked at it so many times that I knew what I meant to say, but it wasn't until a friend looked at it and said, you may want to make sure that this is correct before you send in. It's just a great way for someone else to get eyes and give some honest feedback about it. You may or may not know about some of this, but in addition to this workshop, we'll actually also be doing some resume reviews. So you can bring your resume to us at Tillman in room 106 on November 7th. We'll be doing drop-in style resume reviews from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. You do not have to have an appointment. You just stop by that room, and myself and a couple other of my colleagues will be there to help with resume critiques. We'll be going through and helping you kind of think individually about what your resume looks like and what may be helpful for employers to know a little bit more about you, so that you're prepared for the education networking event on November 8th from 9 to 12 at the Hendricks Ballrooms. So keep those in the back of your mind as well. If you're not already, I always do this for all of my workshops, is just follow us on social media. There's a couple things that may be really beneficial for you. If you follow us on Instagram, we tell you all about all the upcoming events, giveaways, those kind of things. The one that I want to showcase or kind of highlight for you today is we have a YouTube channel, and we put all sorts of workshops, videos on there that may be meaningful and helpful to you. What's great about the YouTube channel is if we're not here, so if it's outside of our normal 8 to 4:30 hours and you need something, the content or workshop or advice from an employer or one of us is probably on that YouTube page. So keep that in the back of your mind. Anything from resumes, interview information, cover letters. We've had employers give tips about what they look for in an interview. All of it's located there. If you haven't come to see us before, please consider doing so. We have appointments Monday through Friday and drop-ins Monday through Friday as well. Appointments are scheduled events through Clemson JobLink, and drop-ins are just come up and see us anytime from 1:30 to 3:45 on the 3rd floor of the Hendricks Student Center. So the difference between those two services are going to be that drop-ins are 10 to 15 minutes. You do not have to call ahead. You come in with a resume, cover letter, questions about your job or internship search, or any other short questions that you may have. You just come on up to the 3rd floor of the Hendricks Student Center, Monday through Friday, 1:30 to 3:45. Or if you need a little bit longer time, you can schedule a 30 or 60-minute appointment. You visit Clemson JobLink to schedule those appointments now so that you can kind of manage what time frame may be the best for you. And you can talk about multiple topics. You can talk in depth about something that you need to talk about, but let us help you do whatever you need in your career development journey. So that was a lot of information that I covered in 20 minutes. Does anybody have any sort of question, concern, anything that I can help with in terms of resumes or any kind of knowledge about the Career Center? if you'd like, you can drop them into the chat, or you can just unmute since there's only a few of us in here today. While y'all are thinking, I like to end every presentation with our diversity statement. We just want to make sure that every student knows that they are welcome in our center, that we appreciate and learn from individuals' similarities and differences, and we hope to create a safe environment that affirms the dignity of everyone. So please remember that as you come to see us. We are happy to help at whatever stage of the journey you are in. And something to remember, we are here for you, not just while you're here at Clemson, we're here as well 1 year after graduation, if you have any questions, concerns, or anything like that. So seeing nothing in my chat box, y'all are
one.
Go ahead.
So as you were saying about the like high school to not put like your education, but if you want to maybe teach there, could we do the same thing for elementary school, like put alumni or no?
Oh, that's a really great question. I would say I might, rather than put it on your resume, I might think about if you write a cover letter, or if you have maybe even like a follow-up opportunity with that district or with that school, that I may say it that way. I don't know if I would put it on your resume though. You could add it into, if you have an objective statement on your resume, to say, to obtain this teaching position at my alma mater in this school. But I don't know if I would put it, that's a good question. I don't think I'd put elementary school on the resume, but I would try to drop it somewhere else, either in that objective statement or in a cover letter.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
This is kind of specific, but do you recommend using resume paper?
So it's so funny. I used to say yes. Now employers keep telling us it's not as important or crucial to have it. From the career fair in the past, we have had employers actually say it's harder to write notes on official resume paper. So it's not I would say it's not necessary anymore. Now, if you like it and you like the way that it looks and it makes you feel a little bit more polished, absolutely go for it. But it's not a requirement, I would say, as much anymore.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I will send this presentation to y'all. You will have my email. If you have any questions that you think of later, please don't hesitate to let me know. If y'all don't have any more questions, thank you so much for coming.